Welcome back to the Student Hub Live. Well, this is our induction for students from the Open University Law School and the Open University Business School. I've got two people here who you really want to meet. They are tutors. They might not be your tutors. You're probably being allocated your tutors, but they are some tutors. And your relationship with your tutor will hopefully be one of the best relationships of your OU journey this particular year. So John and Tracy, thank you for joining me today. Tracy, you've been a tutor on B100, which I know a lot of our students are studying, and its predecessor for quite some years now. And John, you gained your first degree with the OU. You started as an undergraduate in 1971.
Yes.
And 10 years later, you've been a tutor on various modules, including B100. So I'm delighted that you've both been able to join us today. We've got loads of widgets, so we'd like to know your thoughts on how you're feeling, what you're studying, where you're studying, if you're studying full or part-time, which level you're studying, and whether you're studying B100. Some really important questions, actually, is that we're not just here to eat biscuits and have fun. We're here to help you feel a little bit better about your studies. So we'd really like to know about whether or not you know more about what's expected of you as a student as a result of attending. So there's yes, no, or unsure. And whether or not you understand more about how the curriculum works, and whether you feel better prepared and supported for your studies. So please do click on the box, tick the one that applies to you, submit to send, and we'll feed those in later. OK, we've got a lot of excited students here who are studying B100, and I first wanted to talk about the purpose of B100, if indeed that's not too broad a term.
Well, basically, it's to try to understand the world of business and organisations in general. Not just business organisations, but organisations such as not-for-profit, NHS, schools, charities. And it gives an overview of what businesses and organisations in general are all about, how they're structured, the culture, the things that we all have to do, look at human resource management, finance, accounting, ethics, globalisation, and such aspects as that. We cover all of that in B100 because it's important for people to understand the world of business and the world of organisations to make better contributions towards that world we live in.
Now, we've been talking earlier today about employability skills and about things that you might have without knowing. And B100 is a very interdisciplinary module. You're learning a lot of different things. You're also learning a lot of different skills. There's a lot going on that you may not be aware of.
Yes, definitely. It's not just about the course content for the students. There's a lot of extra things that they can take away from it. And it's things that not only will help them in terms of the wider studies, but also as well in the kind of wider working life. So things, for example, such as critical thinking, being able to look at an issue from different perspectives and be able to think about things from the point of view of different people. Things such as searching for information, being able to evaluate information and being able to look at something and say, yes, this is good, this is bad, and make better judgments about whether or not information is valid and relevant to the purpose.
There are even things like communicating on forums, submitting an assignment online, writing an assignment online. Those are really, really key things that one could put on a CV as well.
Definitely. And the things that are learned in B100 will, very much set the students up for the journey that they're going to take with us.
So they're getting a taste of lots of different things,
Definitely.
different methods, different ideas from the different disciplines that they might be feeding into, because it's a very broad module that will feed into a whole range of specialisms later on. And also, as you say, some of the skills that they're learning, the reading, the note-taking, all of those things are embedded throughout the module as they're going through. OK, so how do you guys as tutors then on B100 support the students as they're doing all of this stuff?
Well, there's a variety of ways. There's a contact with what we call a tutor group forum. Each student is allocated to a tutor, and the students in that group have the tutor group forum in which the tutor can communicate and correspond with all of the students within his or her group, but also the students can talk to each other within the tutor group forum. That's one method, and it's a very important method that the students do learn to use the tutor group forum for all of the questions they have, to talk about the assignments, talk about the activities, but not just tutor to student, but it's student to student as well. That's one method.
And do you take biscuits to tutorials?
Of course.
They are compulsory.
They are compulsory. Do the students take biscuits?
We encourage them to bring their flasks. Flasks and biscuits, definite.
Okay, we've talked about some of the online tutorials where you have to have your own biscuits, and other tutorials, the face-to-face ones, you can bring biscuits to because you're in a setting. You've also mentioned the tutor group forum. Broadly, what's the ratio then between students and tutor, and how well might you get to know your students, and how well might they get to know you?
So in each individual tutor group forum, the ratio is approximately 1 tutor to about 20 students. So it's nice enough range to be able to get the views and opinions of different people, and to gain insight from people from different backgrounds, but at the same time small enough so you still got that contact. There will be people who you get to know as you work, with in the forum, and probably people that then you'll go on to keep encountering again as you move through your studies.
Now, some students have been saying over the last few weeks, because we've been running a variety of boot camps and things, which if you haven't seen, you can watch on the catch-up. They've been saying, well, when do I get my tutor? And we know that there's a very complex process going on matching the two at the moment. But when they do get allocated their tutor and they see those details, what do you expect the students to do, and what do you both do?
Well, what we do as tutors, we send out a welcome message within the tutor group forum, but we also send a group email so that they not just have to wait till they have access to the tutor group forum. Like, we get one to their private emails. So it's a welcome saying who we are, what we do, and what the course is all about, and an introduction, say a little bit about ourselves. And then next week, when B100 tutor group fora open, they will correspond with us. The student forum is already open, but the tutor group forum are open next week, and they will see what we've written about the welcome we've said, the introduction, and we want them to get talking to each other and to us, tell us a little bit about themselves, what their expectations are, their hopes are, and if they have any anxieties, what are they, so they can discuss it with their tutor.
Okay, so we've got 5% of students here who've already studied B100. If you have, tell the other students what to expect, please. And 71% are already studying B100. But I wanted to talk about this point then in the module, just before module start, and in fact going up to module start. Everyone's got their highlighters or not, as the case may be. They're stationery ready, etc. So what do you think students should be doing right now in terms of getting set up to study?
The first thing really I would advise students to do at this stage is, as soon as they get access to the online material and online resources, just to spend a little bit of time actually having a look through and learning to navigate your way around the B100 course page. It will feel new, it will feel scary, and it will feel as though there's a lot of information to take in. But to get over that, just have a look round. Just, set aside half an hour, click all the links, see where it takes you, and just familiarise yourself with that information. It's one of the best things that a student at this particular point can be doing.
What have you got here, John?
The aspect is that they will all get this module guide, and they need to read this through fairly thoroughly to see what's coming. And
what's in it?
Well, it's an overview of the whole of B100, how to approach it, what the blocks cover, talk about assignments, talk about the other aspects of what they're going to do, activities that they need to do, talking about the issues with each other. We want students to talk to each other, not just student to tutor.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Now, this whole idea about getting an overview is a really important one, and I think something that sort of becomes more clear, I guess, well, certainly for me, the more I studied, was to sort of have some sense of that there were 5 of these and that I would have this number of assignments, and broadly these would be the themes, and it might be that this theme linked to this theme a bit later, was very important as I was studying. But I remember right at the start thinking, I'm just going to colour all this in really well and read everything through, and I don't really care what's going ahead because I'm just going to hold tight and get through it. How do you encourage students to deal with this whole sort of dilemma between trying to get an overview of something that arguably they don't really know about?
We would just encourage students really, if there's any issues or any questions, or if anything feels too daunting to them at this stage, then please do get in touch with a tutor. That's exactly our job really. That's what we're here for. So if it all seems a lot to get your head around to start with. We can help you. We can help point you in the right direction. We can help show you the things that are most important and which you can be focusing on. So do please make use of your tutor.
Yeah, no, they should definitely get in touch with you. But what is most important then?
Just familiarising yourself. It's you know, going back to the point we made before, but at this stage, just trying to get used to the different things and just basically knowing what the B100 looks like, so that when we talk about the course website, you have that idea in your mind. When we talk about the tutor group forum, again, you've got a picture in your mind of what it looks like. So just trying to put pictures to all of the different things. That's one of the biggest things that students can do.
Because things become more familiar as you're going. But when you're first starting, it can be odd. And I think, you know, things like finding the assignments and finding out when they're due, and expanding your study calendar so that you can get a broad overview of things is important. Students will start sort of doing week by week things then on their study planner, and they'll have things that they can tick off, and there'll be like videos and they'll have activities and things. Now, what do you do in terms of monitoring all of these activities? Because I know that students say, oh, I filled them in. What did you think of my results from question 1A?
Well, the thing you touched on, Karen, the important thing, students should focus on their study planner because that outlines what they need to do each week and what's coming up. But we don't monitor them in terms of assessing their contributions in that. We monitor to see if they understand what's going on so that we can give them feedback and guidance. It's just to see that they are familiar, they're au fait with everything, and they're comfortable with the tools that we supply and they have at their hands. And it's important they do feel comfortable in using the online materials and the online tools. So the only time we actually monitor them as such is when we have to assess their assignments.
Right. So you don't see all the activities that they do. That's really for their learning. And it's sort of, I guess, mirroring that classroom of like, if you had to think about these things, what would it be? And you'd write them down. And actually those things, you know, can be really, really helpful shifts in learning and understanding. And so students do those on their own. The tutor doesn't see any of that. They won't know what you've done. They don't see all the ticks. It's the assessment that really matters in terms of what is basic, well, what is assessed. That's the only thing.
Well, we have to be careful, though, that they put, when they're doing activities and comments in the TGF, that they're on the right lines. If they're going awry, then we might come in and say, well, you know, think about it this way. That's the tutor group forum,
but also I was referring, I think, more to these online activities where we might ask students questions and they can fill things out on the virtual learning environment. So, yeah, they'll do that as well. No.
The only time we do that, they are asked to perform activities collectively within a discussion in the TGF, where we do mark them. They do gain marks for collaborative, as it were, activities.
But if students are having any issues or any concerns about the activities that they're doing, again, that's what we're here for as tutors. So the answers to activities won't come directly through to us, but if a student has any queries or questions, we are happy, more than happy to help them with that.
Excellent. Okay, so we've been asking our students what they're doing right now. Aside from eating some biscuits, they are mainly doing business. They're very excited about all of their new modules. Hey, let's have a look at actually what you put on the word cloud, because there's some lovely ideas coming through here. Studying again, getting a degree, approach being a student, meeting new people, helping other students, learning I can, what a lovely thing. Student Hub Live, brilliant. Better understanding, meeting similar people. TMA, yes, really. Well, I guess it is good to look forward to a TMA. And finishing, which is very optimistic because you can do it. Okay, so lots of things going on there. Right, TMAs then, a really important part of the whole process, the tutor marked assignment, where tutors will spend a substantial amount of time going through an individual's work, giving individual feedback that student will hopefully learn from and then use to progress to their next assignment. So can you tell us broadly how that process works? What happens in what time period, and what happens on B100 with this? Because again, a level 1 module sort of matters a lot less than a level 3 in terms of the overall qualification. So can you talk us through the assessment?
So at various points throughout the module, students will have to do the assessments. So the first assessment that students will be doing will come at the end of block 1. That will be a piece of writing based on a case study, and it's something that will be submitted through what we call the ETMA system, an online submission system that will come through to us as tutors to have a look at and to give some feedback on. So the idea is that in B100 we really do hit the ground running, so it means that there's a really good opportunity at an early stage of the module to get a feel for what the assignments are like, and even more importantly to get some feedback. One of the things that we would encourage with that first assignment, it should really be seen as an opportunity to see the things that you do well, to see the areas where there's perhaps room for improvement. So please don't see it as something scary, or please don't see it as a threat. Please really see it as a chance to help yourself to get better, and to help us give you some personalised input to help you get better.
And how do they submit their assignments then for marking? What sort of happens?
Well, it's an electronic system, as Tracy just said, and when they go online and look through their website, they'll be given instructions on how to do this, and they have the opportunity to submit a dummy TMA to their tutors just to make sure that they understand the system, and the tutors will give feedback, say yes, received, okay, so that when they come to submit their first live, as it were, TMA 01, they know the procedure because they've done it on a dummy. There are no marks for a dummy case, it's just a test to show how to do it.
And what do they need to do then to pass the assessment?
Well, there are 5 TMAs altogether, and they're spread obviously over the whole of the module, and the marks for each TMA are averaged across the whole of the module. The first TMA is worth 10% of total marks, so it's an easing, as it were. So, and even if they fail a TMA, it doesn't mean to say they'll fail the whole module because they're averaged. So students can get, say, a 35% on one TMA, but they get 60 on another, and it balances out because the overall threshold for passing is 40%.
So it's 40%, and there's a handy assessment calculator, isn't there, that students can use to sort of see how that weighting, I guess, of the various assignments goes. But it's a nice steady increase into things. And is it as hard, the first assignment, compared to the last?
The first assignment is very much just designed to ease you in, and just designed to kind of show you what kind of questions you will be experiencing as you work through the module. There is a steady increase as you work your way through, and you will find that TMA 5, we're asking you to do slightly different things. Things, for example, that might involve a little bit more critical thinking. But you will be well prepared for that. The activities that you'll be doing on a week-by-week basis are designed to develop not only your knowledge of the business content, but also the skills that you'll need in order to be able to tackle some of those slightly more challenging assignments that come towards the end of the course.
Okay. Now, the case studies in B100 run through the module and are really interesting. And in fact, we've got a video afterwards about the B100 module by the B100 team, which you'll enjoy watching, hopefully. But tell us about the case study and why this matters.
Well, case studies are based on actual organisations to give some reality to what they're studying. It's not just a pure academic course. It's about how do we apply the concepts and theories and models that they're learning to the real world. And through case studies based on, as I said, actual companies and organisations, they learn to see the usefulness of academic theory into a real company. For example, Dr. Anja Schaefer, who is a key member of the module team, is a family member of a German company called Schaefer Kalk. And because of Anja's family connections, we are able to use the Schaefer Kalk case study throughout the whole of the module to show a German typical middle-sized successful company and how it's structured, how it operates. So we give an international dimension too through the use of case studies.
So this is almost using academic theory to bring these real-life issues to make sense of them.
Definitely. And there'll be an opportunity for students, for example, as well, to start to bring in their own case studies. When it comes to TMA2, what we ask the students to do is to source a job advert, something that's of interest to them, and to base the whole assignment around that particular case study, as it were. It's something that we find students enjoy. It's something that we've found students have actually taken so much of a liking to the job advert they're using, they've applied for, and in some cases actually got the job. So it really does help to place what they're doing in a real world context.
I want to just end by asking about some of these forums. You've mentioned the tutor group forums very early on in this discussion, and I'm aware that some of the assessments are marked discussions. So when are those, and how often do students need to then go to their forums?
Well, I would hope that we'll go on a daily basis, because tutors will put key messages in there. They will put key advice in there about approaching a particular subject or a particular concept, and for when the TMAs are due. We give a lot of advice when TMAs are due about how to approach them, what to look for, and so I would try to encourage students to go on at least a daily basis. If they can't manage that, maybe every other day, because there'll be a lot of information going backwards and forwards from the tutors to the students.
Brilliant. And they can subscribe to those discussions as well if they don't want to go into it. So they can get an email link and then they'll get a notification when there's something going on. So that can be really helpful. I often do that. So thank you very much, John and Tracy, for coming and explaining all of those aspects of B100. That's been really useful. And now we're going to show you a video, as I've mentioned earlier, which is by the B100 module team about the B100 module. And then we're going to have another business discussion where we're going to talk about secrets of Silicon Valley. So join me in a few minutes after this video.